Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for once again joining me for tea time. Today we have a little bit of fireside, that smokiness of the lapsang, guys. You know I absolutely love it. So I hope you're joining me today with your cup of tea, coffee, maybe something harder, as I always say, depends on what part of the planet you're on. Today we're going to be talking about Sony and their A7 IV that is soon to be announced or released, supposedly before the end of October. I want to get into it a little bit with you guys. I want to give you what specs we have as of today and also discuss a couple of things about it with you to find out, where does this camera sit? Is this camera still going to be that loss leader to bring people into the platform, or is it not? What are they going to do with it? Now, even though I'm recording this in the studio, as you can tell, something has changed. Instead of using the Sony camera and a Canon camera and the RE20 microphones and all the rest of the stuff, I'm using a lapel and an iPhone, okay? So the reason behind that is when I came back from this trip that you guys know, if you watched the last video I was on into Tennessee, I came back to absolutely no internet, which was fantastic. So come to find out, one of the cables, the cat cables that we have around the studio, a tree somehow wrapped around the cable and broke it. So we know as of today, it's next to impossible to get anyone out to do any work, right? Because of the unnamed virus, right? So I decided to do this on my own, and I ended up having to dig this 100 to 110 foot trench using a pickaxe and a shovel from 9:30 in the morning all the way to 6:30 at night. I got it done, but since we're using this really expensive high-end Cat 6, Cat 7 cable, we needed different plugs, different ends that could accommodate that size, that type of cable. So we have those coming in overnight. We should be all back to the norm on Monday. So that's my dilemma. I just wanted to let you know, just in case you see anything different. I don't even know what I look like because I'm recording with the backside camera instead of the front side camera. So hopefully this comes out pretty decent. Let me know. Anyways, let's get into this Sony. But before I do, I want to say that if you haven't downloaded any of my ebooks as of yet, go download them. They are free. Go to jcristina.com/books. Once again, jcristina.com/books. Go pick them up. Once again, they're free. So jumping into this Sony A7 Mark IV now, I want to give you the specs that we have and also compare them to the specs of the A7 III, just to see what has changed or what is presumed to have changed from the A7 Mark III model to the A7 Mark IV model. You know I don't like specs, but in this situation we need to look at them so we know what to expect, let's say. Now, starting out with the body type. The A7 III obviously was the original A7 body type from day one, whereas the new A7 Mark IV is going to have the A7S III body. Now, what is improved there is that heatsink. It has a bigger heatsink, a more efficient, let's say, a better heatsink in it. So that's really good. We're not going to have to worry about overheating, just like the A7S III does a fantastic job at handling that heat dissipation. So that's really good. Also, the sensor has enlarged, let's say. The sensor on the A7 Mark III is a 24 megapixel, whereas now supposedly we're going to have a 33 megapixel sensor, which is nice. Dynamic range has stayed pretty much the same as 15 stops of dynamic range across both cameras, and the LCD now has changed. The LCD is that same 3-inch LCD panel on the back, but we're seeing now, instead of 2.36 million dots of resolution, we're up to over 3.5. So I think it's 3.69 million dots. So you're going to have a better, let's say a million dot better back panel as far as the resolution goes. So it's going to look a lot better. I'm going to guess it's probably going to give you a few more nits of brightness, so that will be nice in the daylight. Now, what has also changed about that back panel is now it's going to be fully articulating, meaning that you can use it for selfies, let's say. It will flip out as well as flip forward, whereas the old old camera, the A7 III, only flipped up, and you would need like a mirror system to be able to reflect it and do all kinds of crazy crap if you wanted to be able to see yourself, or of course attach a monitor to the camera. So that is really good. That is a big thing. A lot of people that use these cameras for vlogging and whatnot, or any type of video creation, they have always liked to see a fully articulating back panel, and supposedly Sony is giving it to them with the A7 Mark IV, which is great. Now, as far as capture, video capture, the original, the A7 Mark III, would do 4K 24p using an oversampled 6K image, whereas the new model is going to use an oversampled 7K image, which makes sense. Obviously, it's a larger sensor. Instead of 24 megapixels, now it is 33 megapixels. That same thing holds true when it comes to 4K 30p. The old model, the A7 Mark III, would oversample 5K, whereas the new would take 7K oversampled to be able to get that 4K 30p, which is nice, and 4K 60p is doing something similar. The new model, the A7 Mark IV, is going to oversample 4.8K. Whenever you're oversampling a larger image, you're going to get a crisper, a better image, and that's what they're doing here. And obviously they're going to use that entire frame, that entire sensor. And since it will have more megapixels, you're going to get a better oversampling rate, and most likely a more crisp image, which is nice. Now, as far as image stabilization, the old A7 Mark III gave you 5 stops, whereas the new one will give you 5.5 stops of image stabilization. That's pretty much the norm right across the board. Doesn't matter what camera you go to. Now, what has also changed supposedly is the HDMI out. Now, on the old camera, the HDMI out was a mini HDMI, so it would be an HDMI D, I believe, whereas the new one is going to be a full-size HDMI out. That is fantastic. In my opinion, I personally like the full-sized over the smaller micro HDMIs. They're a little bit more delicate and finicky. So that's my personal opinion. Now, what has also changed is the bus. Now, when it comes to the bus type, the Sony A7 III gave you a UHS 1 slot, whereas the new camera, the A7 IV, is going to give you a UHS 2 as well as a CF Express. That's awesome, because they're going to need those faster speeds, because now you have a larger sensor, more data, faster processing, so that's great. Now, the menu system has been upgraded, so instead of the standard A7 III menu system, you're going to get the A7S III menu system. Now, a lot of people love that because there's a lot of tweaks, there's a lot of goodness that was put into that menu system, and now it's going to be migrated into the A7 IV. Now, as far as price, the A7 III is $1,999, where it said that this new A7 IV is going to come out at $2,499. So you're talking about $500 difference. Now, this is the point that I really want to stress here in this video. The A7 III being at $1,999, and now the A7 IV, if it is, at $2,499, $500 more. Where does this place the camera? Okay, is this still that loss leader camera to bring people in? That sub $2,000 mark was a major factor of bringing a lot of new blood into the Sony platform. Now, if we see this jump up to $2,500, does that mean that they're no longer going to use this camera as that loss leader and use one of their other cameras and drop the price on that? I want to know your thoughts on it, because this was a major factor when the A7 III came out, and I was recommending it to a lot of people. People would ask me, should I buy Canon, buy Sony? I would say, listen, as of right now, even though I'm a Canon shooter, I would recommend that you buy the A7 III, because you're going to get more ROI, better return on investment. There's just better stuff in it for your investment, for your money. But now, if we do see that $2,500 price tag, is there going to be enough in there to say we want to spend the extra $500, number one? And number two, is this, like I said, no longer going to be Sony's loss leader and they'll use something else, A7C, whatever, and drop the price on that to bring people into the platform? The other factor here is this announcement, or the release of, I think it's the October 25th date. Will that stand, or will that be pushed forward due to the chip shortage? We're seeing these shortages right across the board, not just with electronics and chips, but with everything. Here in the US, we have probably 100 plus freighters off the coast of California that are not being unloaded. They're just sitting there with probably say billions of dollars worth of goods on them that are just floating in the ocean, doing nothing. All right? So this shortage, I think, is going to be ongoing. They're trying to fix it, but I don't see it being fixed anytime really soon. And they're even saying that Christmas is probably going to be stifled by the Grinch this year, whereas you're not going to be able to get your kids the gifts that you want because you're not going to find supply. And to go out there and buy Christmas gifts now in October because you're not going to find any in December. I mean, we're living in crazy times. The same reason why I had to go dig a 110-foot plus ditch all day yesterday, because there's no one out there that wants to work. I was looking at 2 or 3 weeks wait time to be able to get someone to go and run a new cable. Anyways, don't want to get into that. I want to get into the Sony a7 IV. What are your thoughts? I want to know what you think. Once again, this edit is going to be done on my iPhone, so it's not going to be fantastic. It's not going to be my normal, so bear with me. Give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed this even a little bit. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. I have 600 plus videos on here, a ton. Also, click this little bell icon over here so when I go live, you'll be notified of it or if a new video comes out. And like I said, don't forget to pick up that ebook over at jcristina.com/books. Once again, jcristina.com/books. And finally, head over to jcristina.com where you can find all the photography tools I've invented for you and me over the years. And hopefully there's something there that you might like. And if there is, please pick it up and support me and my family. And for getting to the end of this video, in dealing with this audio and this iPhone camera, which I have not a clue what it's going to look like, use promo code YT20 at checkout. Once again, promo code YT20 at checkout over at jcristina.com and get 20% off everything in your shopping cart. Not one thing, everything. So that's it, guys. I'm out of here for yet another vlog. Many blessings to you and your family. Stay safe and stay healthy.